Welcome to the Everyday Creative Podcast. We are two creatives that will discuss our own creative journeys, mental health, and a little bit of everything in between. Oh yeah, we're married too. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the first episode of the Everyday Creative Podcast. I'm your co-host, Camaryn.
And I'm the other co-host, Bryce.
And this is our first podcast that we've ever done.
Yeah.
At least on this side of the camera, the ones actually talking. So why did we decide to start a podcast?
Because everyone's creating a podcast, Camaryn.
Obviously.
No, but I think the main goal of this podcast was just to give us a place to create something together and to have conversations about our creative processes, mental health, how mental health affects our creativity, and just to give a platform and a voice to some creative people that may otherwise be hidden because of the algorithm or something like that.
Yeah, our goal is to eventually have people on the podcast, so that'll give a little spotlight to other people in our life that we know, or maybe we just meet because of the podcast who are creative people. But even more than that, this podcast is really for anyone, because everyone to some extent can be creative. They might not know it, but I think that they could be creative.
Yeah.
And so whether you're a creative, if you are a creative, then you'll definitely want to listen to this because you'll be like, man, I'm understood, right? If you're a person who's not really sure if they're creative or feel like they're not, but every once in a while they have like a little, inspiration for something, well, maybe you'll learn through this podcast that you actually are a creative person and you operate as a creative person. And if you think that you don't have a creative bone in your body,
you might learn that you actually do.
Yeah. But maybe if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're still just talking about human experiences and experiences people have every day. And so we think that you'll still be able to relate to us and what we talk about on this podcast. I also feel passionate about giving voice, like you said, to creators who maybe aren't seen because of like the algorithm on social media, or just people who are the minds behind the entertainment that we enjoy every single day, through social media, through TV shows, movies, commercials, things like that, because sometimes we take that for granted. So I want to give a voice to that. But we are called
the Everyday
Creative Podcast. So why did we name it that?
Mostly because me and you, we're not special, quote unquote special.
We're normal people.
We're normal. We're not working in big industry. We're not in Hollywood. We're not influencers on YouTube or anything. We're just your everyday creative person. So I think we just wanted to create this, and we named it the Everyday Creative Podcast because we're just normal people going to discuss problems and
normal life things.
Yeah, normal life things.
Yeah. And our goal is to talk to people who are also normal people and maybe everyday creatives themselves. Because oh my goodness. Because like you have a passion for giving a voice to people that might be not heard. Yeah.
I have a passion for talking about creatives in the realm of how mental health affects processes, and how if you're operating out of depression or anxiety, your artwork and your art creation, whatever, is going to reflect that.
Yeah. So this is a podcast about everyday people for everyday people.
Yes.
So we thought that it'd be important before we got into any topics to give a little bit of a background of who we are and what types of creatives we are, because we believe that there are different types of people, different types of creative. And so we wanted to set that foundation before we got into these topics, because we're going to be talking about things that maybe our listeners will agree with, maybe they won't, but we're coming from our own perspectives, and even we have different perspectives. So we sat down before we did this podcast and we thought a lot about the different types of personalities, the different types of creatives, and you kind of came up with a theory.
Yes, my theory. It's the creative theory. I call it what do I call it? I call it the creative fluidity chart.
Okay.
It's a 4-quadrant chart.
Yeah.
And if you're watching this, you'll be able to see the animation. If you are listening, that sucks for you. You're just going to have to follow along. So,
or stop listening and go to YouTube and watch it there.
Yes. So the 4 quadrants are, the far left is logical. The far right is artistic. The top one is imaginative, and the bottom is realistic. So somewhere on this chart is everybody. We believe that everybody is creative or has the potential of being creative.
Hence the name, the Everyday Creative
Podcast. I would say that I change daily what kind of creative I am. Sometimes I'm more artistic, sometimes I'm more logical, and sometimes I'm more realistic. I wish I could be more imaginative. That's kind of where you come in.
Yeah. So really there are people on this entire like scale almost that even if you think that you're not creative at all, you're still a part of this chart, this scale, because you might be extremely logical and extremely realistic, but that doesn't mean that on some days you might not move more towards artistic and but most days you might be logical and realistic. But we feel like everybody to some extent can have a creative aspect to their life and they're creating things. So you feel like you're more artistic and realistic? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. But you're like, because I am more probably, it definitely changes. And it depends on what you're creating as well, at least for me. But I would say I do have that like imaginative part.
Yeah.
Because I like to have big ideas, but I don't always know how to execute those big ideas. Yeah. I have the big vision, or a lot of times like we'll be having a conversation. I'll be like, we should do this and this and this and this. And maybe like less than 50% of that stuff we actually end up doing, but it's just, I have these ideas. So that would probably more describe like imaginative.
Yeah.
But also like it really does depend on the day, and also depends on the like project that you're doing, because a lot of times I have those big ideas when we're talking about like doing creative projects together, mostly because I know you can execute those ideas. But like when it comes to like creating, I like to do crafts. And, if you consider baking a creative outlet, I like to bake and decorate and things like that, or sometimes do like DIYs. But I like to have like those boundaries and those instructions in place, which some people who are creative don't need those and they feel limited by those. But that's something that I like. So maybe that would push me more towards like the realistic, as it tells me what to do type of thing, instead of just seeing something and,
It can change day to day or subject to subject.
Yeah.
That's why it's the creative fluidity chart.
Yes. But I would think that we agree that you are further along on the artistic side than
Probably.
me.
I'm not very logical.
And I think that's like it's where we like balance each other out as well, because I do like planning and I do like organization. And so there is that little bit of like logical that comes in to when we do creative projects and things like that.
I fly by the seat of my pants and do things last minute and procrastinate.
But if you're a creative, you probably relate to that. Because the other thing that we've talked about many times is just how for you being a creative is like part of your personality. And I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard for me to turn off the creativeness. I wish I could, but I'll have an idea that keeps me awake at night, or I feel like the creativity kind of envelops all of my emotion and daily life, and it affects my mental health, and my mental health affects my creativity. So if I'm doing bad mentally, that can either really spark something in my creative life, or it kind of hinders me from even trying to. Yeah.
But also like just having that creative outlet for you as part of your life is important. Whereas for me, I feel like I kind of choose when I want to be creative, whereas you can't really.
Yeah.
It's just part of you.
When we're driving down the street, I'm seeing everything in frames and photographs and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's definitely more of a hobby. It's something that I enjoy to do, and I enjoy making things. But we've kind of learned since we got married that I have to do it as a hobby.
Yeah.
Because if I try to do it professionally, it just steals all the joy and inspiration out of me.
And I've seen that firsthand with you. Whenever we were on our honeymoon or something like that, I gave you a camera and you were taking pictures.
I took a lot of pictures,
and like half of them got deleted because the SD card formatted or
but corrupted. It's okay because I still had like 300.
Yeah, but you were enjoying it and you were exploring your artistic avenues. But then whenever we started booking up like portrait sessions and all that, and you were doing those, it was kind of taking away that spark of creativity for you.
Yeah. It's almost like, I think probably putting the pressure of this is for someone else kind of steals that inspiration from me. But when I'm doing it only for me, because the pictures that we took on our honeymoon, like I just took them for me because it was like fun to do. And I was like, this is pretty. Let me take a picture of it. Or this is cool. Let me try this angle or whatever. But as soon as I start doing it for other people, I start putting that pressure on myself, which just steals the joy from it. So it is different in the way that we operate creatively, because you can do it professionally. You can also do it for yourself. And it has to be a part of your life where I can go months without creating something and I'm okay with that. Yeah. So that's where we're coming from with our personalities. And I think it'll be interesting too, because you are such a creative. Like we keep saying the word like you are a creative, not a creative person, because it's like it is your personality. Like it's part of that personality. And I'm like, I can be creative. I can be more logical. I'm kind of like, I move around that like axis that we showed very depending on the day. And so it'll be interesting because we'll be able to come at it from different perspectives. And so the people who are listening or watching who don't consider themselves creative, like I'll be able to, I got your back in this conversation, but then you'll be able to shed some light on what it's like to be
fully in the creative world and living as a creative,
like always in it. Like you just see the world that way, which is cool. So we have different thoughts on that, but I think it's cool, but it's also probably tiring. Yeah. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So now we're going into our first segment of the episode, which we're going to call Lights, Camaryn, Action.
I think it's pretty clever.
Yeah. Little play on words. Yeah. So if you like that title, let us know. But this is if you don't like the title, you can tell us, but we probably won't change it. Because this is the segment where I'm going to ask you some of your opinions on recent films or TV shows. And I'm also going to give my 2 cents, but take that for what it's worth. Maybe eventually we'll do it where it's musicals too, because I'm not a musical guy, but you are. That would be fun. So we watch a musical and then you can review it and I'm like, yeah, that was like whatever. It's pretty good. Yeah. So today we're just going to start with ranking our top 5 favorite films from 2023. So even though we're in 2024, we're deep in award season. Exactly. So we're reflecting back on the 2023 films. So we're just going to give our thoughts on the top 5, plus an honorable mention. Yep. So do you know your top 5 movies? Do you want to start with the honorable mention? Yeah, I'll start with the honorable mention. I just want to say that 2023 was like a really great year for movies. So yeah. Well, actually, before we get into that, let's give a little background as to why we're doing this segment. Because we like to go to the movies together. And from the time that we were, I know I'm bringing it up, but from the time that we were dating, we we wouldn't say a thing. We still do this. We barely say a word to each other when the movie ends.
Yeah, movie ends. We're walking out.
We go to the bathroom, all the thing, because we don't have a movie theater where we live, but we should. So we have to drive a little bit. So, little bathroom break. We walk out to the car. Mm-hmm. We don't say anything to each other. We look at each other. We try to figure out what the other one's thinking. Yeah. And then we sit down and I'll say, so, what'd you think?
And then I give a rating that is probably way too high in the moment that it will either go up or down the next day.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we give initial thoughts and then we talk for the entire car ride home.
But it is fun because when we first started doing that, like I always wanted to know what your thoughts on the movie were, because I grew up like, I didn't analyze or critically think about the movies I was watching. I just like watched, okay, whatever, move on. And so when we first started kind of rating movies, it was mostly like, what were you thinking about it? And then it kind of challenged me to also think about the movies in that way. So now I give my opinion as well. So now we can have more of a dialogue about it. So we're kind of just doing that for everyone really at this point of just whatever movies maybe that are relevant, we're going to review, TV shows, things like that.
And moving forward, we're thinking about doing like out of the theater reactions. Yeah. And so you guys can kind of be in on it too.
Yeah. And then maybe we'll react again when we film the podcast because like you said, it changes.
It changes all the time.
So 2023 films.
Yes.
Go for it.
So my honorable mention is Barbie.
Really?
Yes.
I'm actually shocked by this. Okay, go ahead.
Really?
I thought it was going to be in your top 5.
No, it didn't quite make the top 5. I really liked it. I thought it was very well made.
Okay. Yeah.
I love Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. I think they're incredible.
Yeah.
And Margot Robbie's incredible.
I'm just going to pause you real quick, if that's okay. For anybody out there who doesn't know actors or directors' names, it's okay. I'm with you. But also, we're going to learn together because I'm learning so other people can learn. So there you go. I just wanted to put that out there because I know you're going to drop some names right now.
Probably. I really, really, really liked Barbie.
Yeah.
I thought it was definitely not what I expected. I think the script was incredibly made and only Greta Gerwig could have done that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that a studio film in 2023 was able to take jabs at itself and kind of, it wasn't really subversive, but it was a cool movie to see some issues that are in the world talked about.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very strongly written. I thought the acting was really good. And that freaking song.
I'm just kidding. I'm ready to see that.
Yes, but
performed.
Billie Eilish freaking killed it, and it makes me cry every time I hear it. So yeah, that's an honorable mention.
It's a strong movie.
It's a strong movie, but it didn't make my top 5.
Okay.
So number 5, which was like number 1 for the first part of the year. Because I think it was one of the first movies we saw this year. Okay. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Okay.
It has honestly gone down in my ranking.
Yeah.
And I think I like Into the Spider-Verse more. But still incredible storytelling. The animation is next level.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. Yeah. And you can't tell me, nobody can tell me that animation is not just as good as live action.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that movie. And I hadn't seen... We watched, what's the first one again?
Into the Spider-Verse like last year. Yeah. With me. I remember I kept on telling you, hey, we gotta watch this. And you're like, yeah, we'll watch it.
Because I'm not gonna lie, like I was a little like, I don't know. It's animated. Yeah. Like I love Spider-Man. So I was like.
But it's the greatest.
But I really enjoyed it. Like
arguably one of the best Spider-Man movies ever made.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. So that's number 5. Yeah. It's good. I can't wait for the next one. Just pay your animators. Number 4 is Air.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Air.
Interesting.
Why is that interesting?
I don't know.
I love Ben Affleck.
I know
and
you
Matt
do.
Damon.
You do.
I love them. I think Good Will Hunting is like in my top 3 favorite movies of all time.
Great movie.
Great movie. So Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are a power couple for me. I love it. I thought it was incredible. It wasn't your typical biopic it was about a shoe.
Yeah.
And Michael Jordan wasn't even in the movie. I just felt it was underrepresented in the awards this year because it got no awards.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was also interesting too because I'm not going to I didn't know the start of because prior to the Jordans.
Yeah.
They're Nike wasn't doing
Nike wasn't cool.
And we own, we wear Nike. That's a thing, Nike's popular. And I just didn't know where it got
The Air Jordan
start.
logo is synonymous with pop culture.
So it is interesting, for the week after, every time I saw somebody wearing a pair, I was like, I know the story behind that. And that's cool. You know what I'm saying? So it was a good movie.
Yeah. Number 3 is The Iron Claw. Yeah, crickets. Just like at the Oscars.
That's what the critics also.
Zac Efron is giving his best performance. He is out to kill. They snubbed him so bad.
You better look in the camera and say that, Bryce.
Oscars, Academy. You snubbed my man, Zac Efron. He bulked up. He got bulky. I'm probably
was large.
I am cutting this part.
No, please don't.
But he got large.
He was large.
Looked so good.
He was larger than I think the real life.
Yes, he was larger than life.
Well, no, than the person he was playing is in real life.
But besides Zac Efron's body, the movie is insane. It is a tragedy. Mm-hmm. It is just like a Shakespearean tragedy.
It hits ya.
It does. And the last 5 minutes of the film just break you. Mm-hmm. I could tear up just thinking about it. But yeah, I think Sean Durkin did an incredible job directing. It's all direction. Mm-hmm. I think the choreography of the fighting.
Yeah. Which they all did.
Yeah.
Which is kind of blows my mind a little bit.
And let's not glaze over Jeremy Allen White.
Killed
Freaking
it.
Incredible.
Killed it.
Incredible. So I think that is my third favorite movie of the year. Mm-hmm. It's just incredible. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Yeah. It's a hard watch. Yeah. But a necessary one. Mm-hmm. That leads me on to number 2.
Oh, I know what this is.
My second favorite movie of the year is Christopher Nolan's banger, Oppenheimer. I'm a Christopher Nolan stan. I love everything he does. Hot take, I don't think this is his best film.
I haven't seen all of his films, but I'm going to agree with that.
Yes. Yeah. Spoiler alert, I don't think it's in your top 5. Is it?
I don't know.
Okay. But I really loved this movie. I did not really love this movie the first time I saw it with you. Because we saw it the weekend after it came out. Yeah. And then I saw it again.
We got married.
The day when it came out. And
which I'm surprised we didn't.
As much as I would have loved to go see it, priorities. Yeah. So we saw it 2 days after it came out. Yeah. And then,
Which it was still a packed theater. Yeah. It was big.
And then I saw it again and I loved it even more the second time. I was able to temper my expectations and look at it for what Christopher Nolan's vision was and really enjoy it. It's incredible. I think it is one of the most gorgeous movies of the year. It's beautiful. I think Cillian Murphy's definitely going to win the Oscar for Best Actor. He's amazing. Is it a tad long? Probably. But Robert Downey Jr. is giving his best performance he's ever, maybe not ever, but that was an exaggeration. But he's giving an incredible performance.
You'll learn that about Bryce.
I exaggerate a lot. But it's just incredible. I think especially the ending. It's a warning sign, as are a couple other movies this past year. But yeah, I loved Oppenheimer. And moving into number one position. is Celine Song's Past Lives. This is probably my second favorite movie of all time. I think I resonated with it a lot because I am Asian and it's a Korean film basically, and it's about finding yourself and kind of just reckoning with the past and the future and what life is. It's a nice slice of life film. It's gorgeous.
And I think something too, which maybe this is a whole episode in and of itself, but like it is one of the themes that's in it is kind of like the main character. She was born in Korea, immigrated to the United States, so she has to to Canada, but has like all of these different like cultures kind of playing in to who she is. And then she connects with someone who grew up in Korea, is very Korean. And so I feel like maybe there's to some extent that part of it to you as well of like, you know, you're a Asian American and the roles that plays in. So it's just...
It is one of the best written scripts I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's underappreciated.
Go see it or go stream it.
Stream it, buy it,
whatever.
All the things.
Watch it.
I could talk for an entire episode about it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm speechless. All right. Give me your top 5 plus an honorable mention.
I definitely don't have I didn't think through like why I felt this way.
That's
but
fine.
It's how I feel. So we'll start with the honorable mention.
Yes.
Which is one you did not mention.
Oof.
Which is Priscilla.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about this after we watched it because you didn't enjoy it as much.
It was fine.
And I'm putting it as an honorable mention, which means it's not 6th in my movie list. But it's one that I did enjoy watching.
Yeah.
I think because for me, I just enjoyed like the time period. Like I love history, and then, you know, grew up kind of listening to Elvis with my pappy and stuff like that. So just getting to know some of the story behind it, I thought was really interesting, and I thought it looked good. I don't know how you felt, but I know you felt differently. But I thought like it looked. I liked the costumes and the details and all of that. But we did talk about how like the dialogue wasn't extremely like emotional for what they were portraying. So it's not probably the best movie that from like the standpoint of how it looked, how it was written, all of that. But I enjoyed it.
I gave it like a 3.5 star out of 5 on Letterboxd. But it was fine. I liked it.
Yeah, but that's my honorable mention. So now, number 5.
Yes.
You're going to be kind of shocked by this, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. Oppenheimer.
Hey, at least it made your top 5.
And the reason I say it, I know everybody loves Oppenheimer. So
I don't think everybody loves Oppenheimer.
Really? Okay.
I don't know.
Here's the thing. I feel like I've seen it once. So I definitely know I need to see it again, which is why I kind of am putting it in my
I know the reason why it's so low.
Well, hold on. One thing is, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
We definitely had a different expectation going in the first time. So when you went in the second time, you were able to
look at it for what it is, not what it could have been.
Right. And like what we thought it was going to be about.
Yes.
And I haven't seen it for a second time. So I don't have that of like, okay, it's not about the bomb. It's about the person.
Yeah.
So
spoiler alert.
Well, it's probably good if you haven't watched it for you to know that before you go watch it. Yeah. So it'll help make sense of the story. So that's part of it. I think I just need another watch.
Yeah.
Part of it is I very much appreciate Christopher Nolan films. Think they're great. But I have bad hearing. And it's really hard. Like you can, I mean, it's loud in a movie theater, but like you can turn it up real loud at home, you know what I'm saying? But like I could not hear half the stuff that was going on. So like as soon as I would comprehend what I thought I heard, they had already moved on. It was already
the next conversation.
I was like, I've missed so much already. So,
which is interesting because this film, you could tell what they're, to me, for a Nolan film, you could hear what they were saying.
So why do you think it's 5th on my list?
I want you to say it. I don't want to say it.
I just have to say, and this is not me being like, oh, this shouldn't happen in films or whatever. It's just, I was very shocked.
It kind of came out of nowhere. I was not expecting to see Florence Pugh's boobs. And they're kind of like, I can't unsee them. You know what I mean? Like, now I know what they look like, and it's kind of distracting. So that's part of the reason I haven't gone again, because I feel like it's like I just wasn't, you know, I really like Florence Pugh, and I've seen her in other things, so I just wasn't expecting to see her boobs in this movie, and then you see them multiple times. But if you watched the film again, you'd be able to look past.
Probably, because they're in my brain now.
You would at least know it's coming.
Yeah, I could look away if I didn't. I mean, you know, it is what it is, but it just shocked me, okay? It took me by surprise. I didn't really feel like it was necessary in the film, but that's to each their own. That's an artistic choice.
Note to Nolan. But I love Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
But he does not do a great job writing intimacy.
No, it was
women,
very
or sex.
Just matter of fact. You know what I mean? It was just there. And also, like, we were in the biggest theater too, so it was like
massive.
So they were just large.
They were there.
So yeah.
So number 4.
That's my honest opinion on that. But the reason I did put it in my top 5 is because I thought it looked great. Mm-hmm. From what I understand of the story that I could hear, it was good. I just need to give it another rewatch. Yeah. So I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. Number 4.
Yes.
I think I got this title right. The Holdovers.
The Holdovers. That's number 4?
I loved that movie. That was great.
I almost put that as my honorable mention instead of Barbie.
So I don't really know what to say about it, but it was like a good, like, feel-good movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like it felt...
It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, but they also went for that, like, like 80s, 90s?
Super 70s nostalgic.
Yeah, so it just felt... Yeah, nostalgic to like watch. Yeah. And it was a good story. I thought it was a good story. You know, that character build, redemption, all of that jazz. So
if Cillian Murphy wasn't up for Best Actor, I'd totally give it to Paul Giamatti. Yeah. He was incredible.
But yeah, I really liked that movie. That was on what? What did that? Because that didn't come out. That didn't come out in theaters.
It did for a short period of time, but it's streaming on Peacock.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that movie. I'd watch it again.
Yeah.
Like over and over. Like every year, if that was like a Christmas tradition or just a yearly tradition, like I'd watch it again. That's how I enjoy, like, you know, if you can watch it over and over again, that's good.
It's a classic already.
Number 3.
Yeah, what's up?
Did you see my list?
I didn't. So this is all...
I don't know if you're going to be surprised.
Oh, boy.
Number 3 is Barbie.
Okay.
Yeah. I really liked Barbie. It was also kind of nostalgic, like especially the beginning of the movie, very Barbie-esque, and
2001: A Space Odyssey.
And
that's what it's ripping from.
I'm not talking about that part, but I'm just talking about like when everything.
The Dua Lipa part, where it's like the dance night.
Yeah, that's type, like the Lizzo song or whatever, and it's like she floats down and all of that. Yeah. Because I played with Barbies, so I think for like. I don't know. I think it brings that little extra bit of fun for people who played with Barbies and had all those things. And
totally.
And also then did not know that the story was going that way. Like I really didn't have expectations for it. But I thought it was really well done and well written. And I think that the message anybody can relate to. Yeah. I think, you know, whether or not there were some people who weren't happy with the message or whatever, for the most part, it didn't matter like what views you come from or anything. especially as women, like you could relate to what they were saying. Even if it was just a part of it, like you could just understand what they were trying to comment on. Also, I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I just remember, like, I think I smiled the whole way through the movie because I was just like,
yeah,
this is great. I kept looking over you like.
Yeah, I was like, this is not what I thought it was. This is amazing.
And then the song.
Yeah.
Which shocked me when we watched it for the first time, because we've watched that movie twice now.
Yeah.
But when we watched for the first time, I was like, is this a musical? Like, this is awesome.
Oh, you're not talking about What Was I Made For?
No, which that's a beautiful song. I'm talking about the Ken song. Oh. That was fun to watch.
That
like,
was.
I don't know.
It's
was
a
lot
whole
of fun.
ballad.
Yeah.
It's a rock ballad in the middle of a movie.
So I thought it was a really great movie.
Very
and
solid.
Obviously took over the world for a little bit. So still kind of influenced trends, all of that. Just really cool. So, but then obviously we love Billy's song.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great song. Okay, number two. Iron Claw.
Okay. Awesome.
Do you want to know? I'm going to call you out.
Oh, no.
A little bit.
Oh, no.
The funny thing about this movie is it's my number 2 favorite.
Yeah.
I think about that movie so much. I want to see it again. I think about it all the time. Really? I think it was a great movie. Like, if my number 1 hadn't been made this year, Iron Claw would for sure be my favorite. But I feel like you can't really compare it. Anyways, we'll get there. But whenever we were trying to figure out what movie we were going to see, because I was like, let's go to the movies.
Oh, I'm so glad we didn't go see the other movie.
Bryce was like, well, the Iron Claw's out, but I don't think you're going to like it.
Yeah.
And now here I am.
I didn't know.
Sitting with it at number 2 on my list. So I really did like it.
I'm glad.
It, like Bryce said, it was really heavy at parts, at moments. It was also, there were moments where it was kind of like heartwarming too, because it's about.
So our camera died midway through.
My second film of the.
Yeah.
So first episode problems, we'll figure that out, why it did that.
Yes.
But.
So as they now know.
Yes. Iron Claw is my second.
Yes.
So I think what I was saying was that it was a heavy movie.
But there were heartwarming elements of it.
There were heartwarming elements. And that, it was just, like, I feel like all of the actors just had the vision that the director had. And you could tell that they were on the same page. And that just made them portray this story that is heavy at moments, just in a really just caring way. Like you could tell that they were caring about the story and the family that it was about.
They understood the assignment.
Yeah. And then not to mention Zac Efron. And not just because it's Zac Efron, but because like this was a great performance and he should have gotten nominated. Yeah. And like, I just think this is, I honestly think though this movie is like his element.
Yeah. Like
being like a loving, caring character.
Yeah. Like
that's his element.
Not to say he wasn't great in Neighbors 2.
No, but like he gets put in those characters. But I think that
this is where he really
and thrives. I think he deserved to be recognized for that. He didn't get recognized. And then obviously
Jeremy Allen White. Yes,
great.
chef.
Yes, chef. Okay. So my number 1, which is the same as your number 1, is Past Lives. And honestly, we've watched it twice, both in theaters. Yeah. And like you said, like just speechless because it is so real and authentic and raw of just a regular human story. It's just awesome. Yeah. It's a great story. It is. And I think, like you had said, it's a Korean film. Half of it's in Korean, half of it's like in English. But even if you don't have that perspective, like if you're not Asian or not, like you can still relate so much to these characters because they're just regular people.
Yeah.
Who, it's like you're just watching their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And also, not to mention how like artfully it was done.
Yeah.
Like,
it was shot on film, on location.
And the actors, amazing.
Yeah.
So much is said without being said. Like, it's just overall like a solid film. Like, it's just hits in every single area. And yeah.
Oh, what we said before our camera died.
Yeah.
It's sad to think that these movies are getting overlooked. So, with the exception of like Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Yeah.
Like Past Lives, The Iron Claw, these smaller indie films, they're getting overlooked because of big movies like the Marvels. Not, like I said, not it made no money, but like Marvel movies or big IP.
Which there's nothing wrong with those movies, but also if you're not seeing some of these other movies, you're missing out on really great storytelling.
Yeah.
And like we had said, like, we were the first time we went and saw that movie, we were the only ones in that theater. It was completely empty. And that just made us sad because we walked out of that theater like, oh my gosh, like that was an amazing story. And people might not ever see that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's important, you know, it's fun to see, like, it's fun to, you know, this is not me throwing shade, but it's fun to like dress up in pink and go see Barbie. Barbie was in our top 5. We loved it.
It was not in my top 5.
It was an honorable mention for Bryce, but it was in my top 5. You can listen to me. No, just kidding. But like, it's fun to go to every Marvel movie. It's fun to do those things. But also, if you love storytelling and if you love film, then go see these movies too, because they deserve the love. And I think the other thing too about Past Lives is I am a crier in life, but I'm not a crier in movies. Like movies and films don't usually make me cry.
I'm a crier in movies.
Yeah.
And not in life.
I don't know why that is, but I just like don't. But if a movie moves me to the point of crying, that means it was so like powerful. Yeah. And Past Lives did that. But if you have your favorite 5 movies plus a honorable mention, comment them.
Yeah.
And we'll probably have like a post on Instagram so you could comment them there as well.
We want to know what you like this year.
And if we didn't talk about a movie, maybe we haven't seen it. So let us know.
Send us your recs. We'll watch them. We'll do reviews.
We will watch movies.
We'll tear them apart. Just kidding.
Well, Bryce might. Actually, I feel like sometimes I'm a little more.
Yeah, sometimes you're harsher than I'm like, that was a time. You're like, that was the worst.
I don't say that, but sometimes. Okay. So now we're moving into our main segment. And the goal would be for this main segment in the future to be interviews with people, creatives who are people, you know. But
or just people that think they're not creative, and we'll convince them that there's something in there.
But yeah, just people that we want to interview.
Yeah.
And but sometimes it'll just be us. But for each segment, main segment, we're going to start it out with a little icebreaker type of thing with a random question that Siri's going to tell us. Yeah. We have a list of questions 1 through 50. Siri will tell us a number. We'll ask that question, just get the discussion started, get our brains going. So,
hey Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 50. 10. 10.
What's the one item you can't live without?
You. Oh, but you're not an item. That's
questionable answer right there.
Whoops.
That's a good question, though.
One item?
You want to know the first thing that came to my mind?
Yeah, what's up?
My vitamin C serum.
Oh, my goodness.
My face things. Moisturizer.
What's the one thing I can't live without? I guess I'd just... Stupid, but my phone.
Because come on, you can come up with a better answer than that. Like, look around the office here. There's so many things.
I'd say a camera. Yeah. A film camera.
Yeah. You would not be. Yeah. That would be.
Phone aside.
Because you like to take the film photos.
So I would say film camera.
I'm over here like, I need hydrated skin so I don't break out.
All right. That was the random question generator.
Now you know a little bit more about us.
It will be more exciting in future episodes.
I think it'll be more fun when we have guests. Mm-hmm. There are some fun ones in there.
There's some really fun ones.
So I'm excited to answer those. But
all right.
Alrighty. So we felt like today it would be good to just talk about our journeys as creatives and creative people, and just kind of just kind of where our journeys began. So I'm gonna let you take the lead on that one.
Yeah. So I didn't prepare much for this at all. I
only notes.
Kind of just created a timeline of my life and some key moments, and we'll just talk about them as they come up, I guess. Here we go. So starting at the beginning, I was born in Korea and I was adopted when I was like 4 months old, which seems like a silly fact, but that really plays into a lot of the reason for what we're doing as creatives, which we'll talk about sometime. But yeah, so I was born in Korea, adopted into adopted family. I was adopted into a great family is what I meant to say. Adoptive family. And I didn't play by the rules. He was a good kid.
I
was a good kid. I just didn't it sounds bad.
You questioned why.
Yes, I asked the question why a lot. I didn't break rules most of the time, but I always wanted to know the why, and if there wasn't a why, I didn't like it. But I always had a camera in hand. I was always taking pictures or seeing things kind of differently, and I figured that out at a young age. I have my uncle to thank for that.
But I even feel like it was in you younger, because we've watched some home videos where once you realized that they were filming you, you would walk up to the camera and go behind it.
Yeah, take it and start filming.
Your uncle definitely brought that out of you, but I feel like there was something in there when you were 3.
So I always had a camera in hand or wanted to be with a camera filming. My parents really fostered a creative environment for me, if they knew it or not.
Yeah.
We were not an athletic family. My dad was big into athletics and stuff as a kid, but he never really pushed that on me or my brother. So I was artsy. I liked to draw and I played music. So they would get me music lessons if I wanted. They got me art lessons with an art teacher. And so they really, whatever I wanted to pursue, they really helped me along in that. So they really helped a creative spirit in me. And even growing up in my teen years and all that, they helped me buy my first camera. And moving forward, they helped. My dad helped me form my first LLC when I was 16,
which is crazy.
Yeah. They were always concerned that I was doing too much, which I probably was, but they always were encouraging and supportive of all the creative endeavors I wanted to. And whenever I didn't want to go the traditional route of being an accountant or engineer, they were super supportive. And while I was in high school, I got a job. I had many jobs, but one of my jobs, I was an editor at a production company in Chambersburg. And then from there, I got a random message from a dude at a church who was like, "Hey, you want to come shoot a video at a cabin in the woods?"
Who was this?
Yeah, so he was like, "You want to shoot a random video at a cabin in the woods for a Christmas video?" Scary. And I said, "Sure." So I couldn't drive. I was 15. So my dad took me out to the site and I met this guy, and I actually owe a lot of where I am now to him. So I'm very thankful. You know who you are. And if you're watching this, probably not, but maybe. But anyway, I think I owe a lot of my where I am creatively to him because he gave me a lot of opportunities. He took the chance on a 15-year-old kid.
He gave you a lot of freedom too.
Yeah.
To like.
Which leads into, I worked at a church for many years in the video department and creative department. And he gave me a lot of freedom and room to grow and experiment. And if it failed, it failed. If it, succeeded, it was great. But I'm very thankful for my time working at that church. But I definitely, something we'll talk about sometime, but I definitely burnt out.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing with my life is I've burnt out creatively multiple times.
Yeah. We definitely want to cover burnout as a creative or even as a person moving forward. But
yeah. And then after that job, I worked at Target, at Starbucks.
But you enjoyed that.
I love that. That was good for me for communication and people. And I learned
socially.
That I loved, socially, I learned that I liked interactions with people, and it kind of, helped me realize why I love people and telling their stories.
Yeah.
Then I worked a corporate job, but then I realized that I wanted to do documentaries and tell stories, human stories. And so I went freelance.
Yeah.
And that's where me and you started a company. We did freelance, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my journey as a creative.
I do have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Kind of going back a little bit.
That was a lot. I'm sorry. I just rambled.
No, you're
Maybe
good.
It didn't make sense.
It made a lot of sense.
It was all over the place.
But I do have a question. Your parents very much like fostered that in you and encouraged you. But like, what role did they have in affirming you in that, in going a creative path?
That's a good question. My parents are very affirmative people, especially my mom. I'm very thankful for that.
Me too. If you're listening.
But yeah, she was always affirming my creative endeavors.
Yeah.
Even as simple as whenever I was young, something that looked like crap, like a piece of art. She was like, "Oh, this is amazing." And I'm like, "Yeah, it probably isn't."
Working on it.
Yeah. But she always affirmed me. And my dad was not as like vocally affirmative, but I knew that he affirmed me and was proud of me in other ways because he supported me because he helped me form my LLC in 2016 when I was doing wedding films a lot and all of that.
Or even like, I remember you telling me the story, I think I'll get the details right, but where you like saw a guitar and you guys like drove home.
Oh gosh.
And then you realized you wanted it and he like drove you back to get it. Like, like just things like that where it's like, that's a sacrifice of time, but showing that he supports your. Yeah.
We drove to a guitar store like an hour away.
Yeah.
I picked up this guitar, played it for like an hour. I was like, I don't really need it. We drove home. We got home, pulled in the driveway. He was like, you should have gotten that. Or something like that. I don't know. And then we drove all the way back, bought it.
Yeah.
And drove all the way home.
That's fun.
Yeah. For a guitar. I still have it. It's actually that one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's special. But yeah.
Anyway.
So that like kept you motivated to keep pushing and keep trying new things because you weren't afraid to step out of those boundaries too. Because you talked about from when you were little, you didn't really like rules. And if there were rules, you needed to understand why, the rules were in place. Which
I'm okay with rules if I know, if there's a solid reason why.
Yeah. You were just like you're just curious as to figuring out the way the world worked. But in some ways that transitions into how you are as a creative person because like you're not limited by whatever. So do you feel like having that little bit of like a spirit in you of like, I'm going to just keep pushing and trying, and rules aren't going to stop me type of thing. Plus the affirmation of your parents helped you kind of create a healthy idea of failure possibly?
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, everybody doesn't. I think at some level, people are afraid to fail.
Yeah. I don't fail well.
But you also try things.
Yeah.
So as a creative, that's important to try new things and to take unique approaches to things. So
Yeah. I didn't really talk about it, but like mental health with creating, like right now, like honestly, I'm in the most like depressive creatively that I've been in a long time, where it's almost hard to create. Sometimes I find that I create the best when I am in more of a depressed state, but right now it's just where life is. It's kind of hard to just pick up a camera even. So we'll probably talk about that on an episode sometime.
Yeah,
or something
we definitely
like
want to dig into that. The last time that you really experienced that was before you had as many life responsibilities, right?
Yes.
So maybe even dive into a little bit of like when being a creator is your job, and yet you have all of these pressures of like providing and making sure that you have enough money to pay the bills and all of that. And like, we won't go too much into depth to that, but how does that, impact your mental health and also your ability to create when there is that like outside pressure almost?
I think we talked about earlier that my brain works in a way that I'm always seeing ideas, concepts creatively. So whenever my job is to be creative, it can be the most fulfilling thing ever, or it can be the most draining thing. So if I'm creating stuff that I don't feel passionate about or don't feel it's worth anything, it's just going to be draining. It might be easy for me to do, but it's just going to be draining and it's going to make me feel worthless. Yeah. I need to feel purpose in what I do. But that's also hard when we need to pay the bills. And before I had adult responsibilities, it was easy to not care as much and just kind of make it along. But whenever you have to pay bills and kind of support people, it becomes harder. And
so it's like, is it important for you to then, even if you're working a job that is in a creative field or in like that industry, is it also important for you to have like your own personal like passion projects?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's better for me to work some random job, like be a barista or anything really, and have a creative outlet that I feel super passionate about, than work a full-time creative job that I don't feel anything for. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I just need to feel like I'm doing something purposeful.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting as well to see like other creatives' perspective on that, because I feel like some are built where that's not the case. Yeah. But you definitely care a lot about the projects that you're doing. And so you want to feel like you're doing something with that purpose. Yeah. Which you mentioned in your quick little summary there that your dream is to do documentaries. Yeah. So what got you into documentaries?
I don't really know what the first documentary I saw was, or whatever caught my eye. It's just something that over the past couple years I've felt passionate about, because there's a lot of documentaries that are just boring. Sorry to whoever likes, I don't know, some things, but a lot of them are just boring. Yeah. But I have a passion for telling human stories that affect people. Yeah. To show that other people are going through hard times, and that's kind of why we're doing the podcast too. Yeah. But one of my passions and dreams is to make a documentary about adoption and adopted kids and adopted families, and kind of the struggles and the good and the bad of all of that comes with that. Because as an adopted kid, I know there's like really high highs, but at the same time, there's some lows and issues that I've struggled with over the years with being adopted. And I'd love to make a documentary about meeting my birth mom, because that's like a search that I'm on with you, and kind of, finding her and reconciling all of that part of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the documentary thing has kind of been the big dream recently to do at some point or throughout our lives.
Yeah.
Because we both enjoy watching documentaries. But I do have a question, like, because you're like, I don't really know where that comes from, but you mentioned earlier about your uncle.
Yes.
And how he kind of encouraged you to get interested in these things. And you can probably explain more, but he does those videos for your cousins.
Yeah, he always made a video for my cousin's birthday. It's just kind of capturing life throughout that year. And then at the end of the year for their birthday, it would be a recap of that past year.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was cool.
Yeah. And I do wonder if like that might not be like a documentary in the traditional sense of somebody sitting down and you're interviewing them, but also it's just documenting life and then putting it together, which at the bare bones is a documentary. So, you know, you were even exposed to just how do you capture people's stories in a really authentic way and even at an early age. And do you feel like that influenced you?
I think so, probably. Yeah. All these small building blocks build up the person that I am now.
Yeah. But I think too, like, it's important, you know, you're talking about the journey that you've been on, the goals that you have now. But as a creative, the biggest thing you can do is adapt because your inspiration's going to change.
Yeah.
Your passions are going to change. So right now it's like, we want to create a documentary, but maybe soon it will be like, also, I want to do a narrative piece also, like, and it's okay to detour to get to those goals. There really is not one path. And if you go into a career or just a lifestyle of being a creative and you think that there's a one way, we've learned this, like if you think there's a one way path to get there, there's not.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be flexible and adapt and allow like whatever your inspiration is in that season to drive you.
Definitely.
So any other thoughts on your story?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I think on an episode, we can dive into kind of my mental health journey because I've suffered with severe depression, anxiety for a lot of my life, and it comes in and out of seasons. And right now it's kind of a heavier season of that.
Right. Which
impacts creativity and just every aspect.
Yeah.
So I think sometime we could discuss that.
Yeah.
So we talked about me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you.
Okay.
What's your journey?
Well, unlike you, I didn't prepare anything. So we're just going with the flow here and seeing what comes out.
Yeah.
I was born in the United States. Just I felt like we should
really?
Yeah.
If you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known.
I just felt like it was necessary because you said it. But anyways, so born here in Pennsylvania. I have 2 older sisters, so a family of 5. And at least when I was growing up, but anyways.
That's a story for another day.
Yeah. So we moved around a lot. I just feel like that'll probably come into play like in later episodes or anything like that. But we did move around a lot. And when I was really young, I was a pretty creative kid. I had a large imagination, like big imagination. I like to come up with games, like whenever I had, for a large portion of my life, again, we moved around a lot. So this was like the place that we stayed the longest, which was like 5 years. So that puts it into some context as well. But I had the neighbors that were next to us. They had a couple younger girls. So they were like my best friends and we would play outside all the time. But we didn't just play like normal games that you play outside. We like came up with imaginary stories and then we would play those. So we would, just elaborate things. And sometimes it was just off the top of our head. Sometimes it was inspired by these like fiction books that we were reading. Sometimes it was like we're learning something in school, so we're trying to make sense of it by playing it.
Yeah.
Like the one time we pretended to be British and we couldn't stop our British accents, but please don't ask me to do a British accent. But like just fun things like, no, I'm not doing it. I can't do it on the fly. But just fun things like that we would play games like that. And from when I was really young, I started to make Christmas gifts for people. The first year that I did it, I made everyone gifts of paper. So I don't know if anyone appreciated them, but like, for example, my mom was a teacher, so I made her like a set of drawings of like an apple and a pencil and you know, teacher things. And
I'm sure she loved it.
She probably loved it, but I don't think my cousin, who's 2 years older than me, so he was probably like 7 at the time, appreciated it. But yeah, it was just like making things. And that kind of changed as I got older and would make ornaments for people, jewelry for people, just wanting to, it was an expression of my creativity, but it was also just an expression of like, this I put time and effort into and I want to give it to you. It's how I showed people that I loved them. So those are kind of like the aspects of when I was really little that I was creative. Just coming up with stories, writing stories. I love to write, which hasn't come back yet, which we'll get to, but loved reading fiction books, just big imagination, love to make things for people. So I didn't really, though, pursue creative outlets. I was in music, though. That would be one that you could say. So like I did like drama club in middle school, did chorus, which we call Glee Club here in high school, did a lot of singing at church, I did band in middle school, tried then to learn other instruments, but this kind of plays into it. My parents were always very supportive of those things. Like my grandfather's, my pappy, he's a musician, so he always liked to do the music side of things. But like my parents, they'd get me a guitar, say, okay, well, if you want lessons, we'll do lessons. But it wasn't one of those things where if I was like, I don't really want to go, that they like,
they were going to push you to go to lessons.
And if I'm the type of person that if I'm not really pushed, like I'm okay just to like, like in school, I was like, I know the answer, but I'm not going to raise my hand because I don't really want to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they didn't really like push me in those areas, because I will say that my parents are creative to some extent, if we're going based on your theory earlier.
Yeah.
But they're not like
traditional
artsy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like that, like art was a big part of our lives. And the way our family was is, we were very academic and we were very athletic. And those were the things that we pursued and those are the things our parents pushed us in because that's what they did.
Yeah.
And so like my dad, athlete. So he pushed us in pursuing sports and really trying to, do our best in those areas.
Yeah.
My mom's very smart. So she pushed us in, doing well in academics. And so I think that was just kind of part of it. I have 2 older sisters as well who, maybe one day we'll have on the podcast, and they're creative in their own rights, but they did academics and they did sports. So it's kind of like something you just did. And I probably was the one that pursued like creative outlets more. But I think eventually you get to a point where if you can only focus on so many things, and because being creative isn't a part of my personality, it was like, I can only give my energy to so many things. And so that was doing well in school and that was sports. So the creative part just kind of went down on the priority list. Yeah. And then when you are having this, like, I'm also a person that puts a lot of pressure on myself. I think that's partly because academics and athletics are performance-based things. Yeah. So I wanted to do well on a test. I ran cross country and track. So I wanted to race well and all of that. And so I think that when, you're pushing really hard to perform well in those things, it just kind of pushed down the creative, imaginative side of me. Yeah. And so like, I'm still trying to learn now, because I'm out of college, how to bring out some of that creativity, and kind of the influence of my experience growing up.
Yeah.
And so, like, for example, I just started reading again, and I love reading, and I loved reading when I was little, but you know, you're in school, you don't want to read for your free time, you know, you're reading a bunch of books for school. So just things like that, trying to figure out what type of creative I am as well, because like I said, I think I got to a point when I was in high school that I was like, I'm not a creative person. Like, I'm a musical person, I can sing, but I'm not a creative person.
And like you said earlier, you can kind of turn on and off your creative lifestyle.
Yeah, and that also kind of goes with how I'm doing mentally, because based on what I'm feeling and what I need and what I know I need for myself mentally is going to depend on if I'm going to like turn on the creativity or not. So for high school, I just turned it off because it was just easier to focus on other things. And same in college, I got to use it a little bit more in the job that I had, just coming up with ideas. But it didn't, you know, it wasn't something that I necessarily like was solely creative. So that actually started when we became friends, because I was working at a church and started writing like spoken word stuff, which I don't think I could do now, but for some reason in that season I could. Like I said, you turn it off, on and off. So like that was the first time we did a project together for that was the first time I had like used that side of my brain, and I was like, whoa, maybe I am a creative person. Like maybe I could do things like this. But yeah, so just little things like that. Again, I feel like I am the type of person that I just have different parts of me that are creative. So like I said, I love to craft, and that goes back to when I was little, making gifts for people and designing things and decorating things. But I also have these ideas that are maybe more of like the purpose filled part of my creativity, that I'm like, let's make a documentary about this, let's make a video about this, let's collab with this like things like that. And then also, which helps us, is I have that organizational part of my brain, and I really think that is all part of my parents as well. My mom is very organized, and she can be creative in that way, and I think there is a way to be creative in being organized, because, you know, like color coding things, all of that, like that's being creative, and that helps us to just stay on track when we need to. Most of the time though, you do like to have that freedom, but you still like, at some point, if you're like, there, every movie has a producer, right? So you need somebody who's at least has a little bit of like, hey, this is where we need to stay on track here. And then my dad, growing up, he was a pastor, and he started his own church. So he had to use a lot of like innovative thoughts to like get things started. And he had a lot of experiences that I had growing up that were like unique, like different type of unique, but unique like you, was just because my dad had these ideas. So he is an idea person, which I feel like
you're an idea person.
I'm an idea person too, of like, all right, these are like, this could be powerful, and you might have a ton of ideas, but only choose to go with one. So that's kind of my background. And I'm just trying to figure out now. So I guess if there's any listeners out there that are like, am I creative? Am I not creative? It's okay to not really know. And just have fun with it. I think I am a person that puts a lot of pressure on myself. Probably because I was in academics just and athletics.
How you grew up.
And what I was involved in. And so when I start to put pressure, like I need to be, like if we go back to that spectrum, I need to be so much farther on the artistic side, because in my mind, I really respect people who are like I know that it's a struggle for you sometimes, but I respect how artistic you are. And I want to be further on that scale. So I put pressure on myself, and then I feel like, but I'm not that way. And so it's just accepting where you are at in the creative scale. And if you're extremely creative, that's great. We celebrate that. And if you're not at all, or you don't think you are, like, that's okay too. And if you feel like I'm creative, but not as good as everyone else, that's okay. Just do it for you. Be unique. And like, that's what I'm trying to learn. And what you're trying to bring out of me, I think.
What do you think is your creative outlet right now? And it's okay to say nothing.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know because I'm not really creating right now.
Yeah.
Because I think this might not answer the question, but I'm going to take like a roundabout answer to it. So like something that like we've talked about is like creating with or without boundaries. And I feel like the times that I feel the most creative, when I don't feel that pressure on me to perform, is when I'm doing well with my anxiety.
Yeah.
So if I'm feeling good mentally, then I feel like I have the mental capacity to create.
Yeah.
If I'm not doing well mentally, then it's a struggle because I need boundaries.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about how I am a planner. When I'm doing well mentally, I need less of a plan.
Yeah.
When I'm not doing well mentally,
You need structure.
I need structure to just help me get through the day.
Yeah.
Because it helps my brain process what's happening. But with that structure comes less freedom to create.
Yeah.
So where I'm at right now, and usually I do think weather plays a role in it, because like that summer, like last summer, I felt like I could create it, like take pictures of anything. I was feeling inspired.
But now we're in the dead of winter
and my mental health is not as great.
Yeah.
Which means I'm just trying to figure that out, and I haven't really tried to create.
Same.
Yeah.
Which is a whole thing.
Yeah.
Because when you have two creative people living in the same house together and we're both not doing mentally well.
Yeah.
And we're both not creating well. How's that work?
Yeah. It is interesting. I also think I will say this as well. I have always been like a crafty person. I love before we got married, in my closet, I had like 2 like shelving things of all craft supplies, and like loved going to Michael's. Loved it. That's my place, right?
Yeah.
And I was always making things that like probably would throw away like 6 months later, but it was fun to make in the moment. And just like doing DIYs, making things, like all the like I'm not like tooting my own horn here, but like I made a scrapbook for us.
Yeah.
Like I spent months on that to give to you when we got married. Like things like that, scrapbooking, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt like when I got married, I don't know if I feel this way now, but when I got married, it was almost like, well, you got to grow out of that. That's not like an adult thing.
Yeah.
That's like a child thing. Like you're making stuff, that's a child thing. Whereas now, like sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had that paint so I could paint this, because I'm feeling inspired to do it. And like, don't downplay, like we can't downplay what our creativity is.
Yeah.
Because the minute I compare making a scrapbook to you making a film, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because it's
not a one-to-one comparison.
No. And like, then I'll say, well, all I can do is scrapbook. But it's like, how did that scrapbook make you feel?
Amazing. And so loved.
So I can use my crafting ability, my creative outlet to then love people. And it might just be in that small moment, but it can still be impactful. And I think that's where I'm trying to figure that out, because there have been times since we've been married where I'm like, because I don't have like a little craft station anymore. Yeah. And I'm like, I could like paint that pot.
Yeah.
Or like, and sometimes it just doesn't look good, and that's okay, because it's part of like the journey. But I think just don't compare what is more meaningful than something else. Although like I think films are like, it's just the expression of all art, you know what I mean? But like some people are painters, some people are musicians, and I think just we all have different ways. So that didn't really answer your question, but I think that I need to embrace my creative outlets that are maybe like not viewed as like, whatever. Like if that's making a craft for someone as is my creative outlet, then I need to make sure that I get the supplies.
Because it's just as valid as whatever.
Yeah. And like, you know, if I want to start like knitting or like crochet, like I should just do that. Yeah. It might not be creating a huge, large scale production thing, but like it's okay. If that's the way you create, then just create that way.
Definitely.
Like we all create differently. So I think I need to find my creative outlet.
Yeah.
That's mine. Because we make things together. You can do things on your own. I need to find what I can do on my own. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't know if that was just a lot of words, but...
No, that made sense.
Do you have any questions?
No. You answered everything.
I talk a lot. Moving on to our last segment of the day. Let me pull it up. We're going to do something with all of our guests on the show, which is a rapid fire question segment where we ask every guest the same 10 questions. And we're just going to start with each other. So on this episode, I'll ask you the questions. On a future episode, you'll ask me the questions. And that's kind of how we'll wrap up our conversation.
I honestly forget what the questions were, so this will be interesting for everybody.
Rapid fire.
Okay,
ready?
We go.
Number 1.
Okay.
What's your favorite movie and or favorite TV show?
Of all time?
Let's just, of all time or right now.
All time, my favorite movie right now is Interstellar.
Of all time, my favorite movie right now.
Well, right now, it changes all the time. But Interstellar by Christopher Nolan, probably my favorite film of all time. Favorite TV show, hands down, Breaking Bad.
Number 2, guilty pleasure movie or TV show?
Guilty pleasure movie.
Like that you wouldn't want anyone to know.
I really love like those Adam Sandler grown-ups movies.
Okay.
And
I didn't know this about you.
I know. And like I love Kevin James movies. So like Here Comes the Boom. I love they're so dumb.
Yeah. But they're funny.
But they're hilarious.
My dad likes those movies.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think.
I love them.
Okay. What is your ideal
guilty pleasure TV show, like Family Guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I was about to ask the wrong question, so we're gonna backtrack. Favorite place you've traveled?
I've traveled quite a few places.
Yeah.
I even lived in California for a short period of time.
I feel like that's probably still your favorite.
No.
At the time of what it was like at the time.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
But I love Pennsylvania. As much as it's...
You do?
I know. As much as I hate to admit it, Pennsylvania is pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
What is your ideal form of entertainment? YouTube or short form content, TV, movies, or reading?
I love movies.
That is the answer to the question. But you're going to give a long answer.
No, but we'll just go with movies.
Movies. Okay. Who is someone you look up to or are inspired by in your career or industry?
That's really hard. Who do I talk about all the time? Joe Greer?
Yeah. Name drop.
I love Joe Greer.
Which it's not really in your like career because
no,
you take photos professionally, but like film photography is more of your like creative.
That's my outlet.
Yeah. So in that sense, he's definitely your.
Yeah. What's cool with Joe is I can't replicate his style because it's so unique and it's Joe. But I love his content and a lot of people try to replicate it, but yeah,
it's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you good with that one?
Yeah.
Who is someone you look up to in your personal life? These get deeper as we go.
I look up to you. I mean that. I mean that.
Okay, give another person though.
I think my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that's what who you were gonna say.
Yeah. I think I look up to my dad the most not just because he was a great dad, but he works really hard. And yeah, he's a hardworking guy. He's not the most traditionally creative person, but he inspires me to keep moving forward and working harder.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Not that it's your dad, but that he really is so opposite of like on the creative scale, but you can still look up to someone who's so different than you. All right. What motivates you, or what makes you feel the most fulfilled in your industry or in life?
I think whenever I create something and I'm like, I'm proud of that. I really love that.
Good answer.
Looking back at something and being like, I did that.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self? You came up with this question.
I know I did come up with that. What would I tell my younger self? A lot of things. Irrelevant to this podcast. I would probably say, don't take life too seriously.
Yeah.
Just do whatever. Take chances and risks while you're young. I'm young now, but like when I was younger, just take risks, take chances, mess up.
Don't let life put pressure on you.
Yeah. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. I'm the person that puts the most pressure on me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
So then, maybe it's the same answer, but
Oh, no.
what advice do you need to hear today?
Just that.
No tears, Bryce.
You're doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be okay. Life's hard. I'm not going to cry. Life's hard. You'll get through it. Just keep creating.
Yeah. Don't give up. Don't give up on it. But
Don't give up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll push through. I'm not going to cry. We're holding it in.
You said you only cry during movies, but here you are.
Oh, man. I've needed to cry, and this is
the moment.
This is the moment
that you decide you're going to emote.
Oh, man.
Let it out.
No, not right now.
Okay. Last question.
Okay.
What do you have going on in your life today?
Oh, so much behind these tears. If you only knew. Right now, just trying to pre-plan some bigger documentary projects with you. Just normal life. Just trying to get by right now.
Trying to figure out the best way to move forward as a creative person.
Yeah, the past couple months have been trying to reevaluate who I am as a creative person, what my purpose is, which do any of us really ever know, but just figuring out where I'm going, where we're going.
Yeah.
What the future holds. So
yeah.
So
hard but good. Hard stuff but good stuff.
Hard stuff but good stuff that will pay off eventually.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
So if you've made it this far, thank you for listening to our first episode of the Everyday Creative Podcast.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah. And obviously it's our first episode.
Oh, they're going to get so much better.
Be patient with us. And
I probably said stuff that I didn't want to say. Or I missed
you were good.
Stuff.
You're good. But our expectation or goal for this podcast is to get other people on. We want to interview people, have conversations with people. So if you or anyone you know would be interested in possibly being on our podcast, like drop some names, because that would be really awesome, or DM us or whatever. Let us know.
So we'll be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, like all those places.
Yep.
The Everyday Creative Podcast is what we're called.
Yep.
On Instagram, we're the Everyday Creative Pod.
So follow us there.
Follow us, like, subscribe, all that wonderful
all that
wonderful YouTube stuff.
Yeah. And our goal is to have one of these out every week.
Yep.
Obviously life happens, but that is something that we definitely want to stick to. So, yeah. Yeah,
thank you for watching and listening.
Yeah. And we'll see you on the next episode. All right.
Cool.
Well. I'm sweaty.